Hey guys, happy Monday. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. I hope that you all had an opportunity to celebrate Mother's Day with all those special ladies in your life. It was such a beautiful day. Guys, we're going to go ahead and start this week off right. We have got one whole week left and 4 days left of this school year. Can you believe it? Gosh, it feels like just yesterday we started the year together. Oh my gosh, it's crazy, isn't it? Well, of course, we have to have a joke. My nephew told me this joke, and I thought it was super funny. Anyway, and he's 5. Okay, he asked me, he said, what do you call a bear without teeth? A gummy bear. Get it? They have gums. Anyway, I loved it. So let's go ahead and start. Again, you're going to need your Go Math book, your flimsy book, your hardback reader. Don't stop on me now, guys, where this is the finish line, the home stretch, okay? We're going to be learning about fractions, this week, okay? So, guys, fractions is just a fancy word for pieces, all kinds of pieces, but they're equal pieces. So, for example, Miss Jones has a candy bar because, you know, I love chocolate, okay? See how this candy bar is broken into equal pieces because they think if you share, there you go, it's easy for you. What if Miss Jones, and I'm getting chocolate on me, gave Mr. Jones this part and I kept this part for myself? Is that fair? No, it's not fair. It's not equal. So fractions, oh, I got chocolate on me. Now, fractions mean that it has to be equal parts, right? So we are going to learn how to separate things into equal parts. So everybody gets the same and it's fair, okay? So we're going to be learning about halves, thirds, and fourths today, okay? So, guys, I already have my board all marked up, so I'm going to show you on a piece of paper. Okie dokie, cowpokies. So, a half. I'm going to try to draw myself just like a small little candy bar, okay? Here's my small little candy bar. A half means 2 pieces. So I'm going to separate this into 2 pieces. Now, here's a trick about fractions. Anytime that you have a half or any number, okay, that means a half. See this 2? I draw 1 less line than that bottom number and I get equal, okay? So if this number was a 3, I would have to draw 2 lines. If this number was a 4, I would have to draw 3 lines. Does that make sense? It'll make sense when we get it, okay? So, this is 1/2. 1 out of 2. So if I were to shade 1 piece, so I have 1, and this line means out of 2 pieces shaded, or 1/2. Make sense? So, this is a half. Okay? Now, the next one we have thirds, and this is all on the top of page 748, but I wanted to show you a little bit more, okay? Because sometimes fractions can be tricky. Now, this is a third, okay, or 1/3. We are going to be doing third, like third place. We don't call it threes. Think about running a race, okay, and you are in third place. Now, like I said, when we had 2 on the bottom, we drew 1 line. When we have 3 on the bottom, how many lines do you think that we're going to draw? 2, 1 less than the bottom number, and that'll give you how many lines you need. Now, mine may not be perfect, guys, because, you know, I'm just kind of estimating here. But I'm going to try to make my pieces as even as possible because Mr. Jones is not going to be happy if he doesn't get his equal piece, right? All right, so this is 1 piece out of 3 shaded, or 1/3, like you're running that race, right? So if I have a piece for Mr. Jones, a piece for me, and a piece for Miss Shelley, we're all okay, right? Because everybody has an even piece. Now we're gonna do 4ths. I'm gonna draw my candy bar. Just like you're running a race, guys, you are in 4th place. The only one that doesn't follow that rule is the half or seconds, right? Because we can't say that. We're gonna do half. Now, you could say seconds, but we normally call it halves. Here we go. We've got 4 pieces we need. This is called a 4th. Now, when we had a 2 at the bottom for half, I drew 1 line. When we had a 3 for thirds, I drew 2 lines. When I have a 4 for 4ths, I draw 3 lines. You draw 1 less than what you need in order to get your equal spaces, okay? So again, I'm gonna try my best to do it even here. I don't think I did that right, so I'm gonna have to draw a little box. Okay. So I've got 1, 2, 3. All right? Now, I'm gonna color this is 1 out of 4 pieces, right? Now, if you'll notice, if all of my candy bars were the same size, as you divide and you have more people, the pieces start to get smaller. Now, it's kind of hard to see on my drawing, but you will see up here on your drawing. As you keep getting people that say, ooh, I want a piece, you're gonna have to share smaller and smaller pieces for it to be fair, right? So, here we go. We've got 1/4. So there was a piece for Mr. Jones, a piece for me, a piece for Miss Shelley, and if Mr. Tom comes along and wants a piece, I'm gonna have to make sure they're at least trying to be sort of equal so he won't be upset, okay? So we have halves, 1 out of 2, thirds, 1 out of 3, and 4ths, 1 out of 4 pieces. Make sense, kiddos? Okay. Now, let's look at your book. On page 748 at the top. Now, I drew all of mine like this. Now, there are other ways that you can separate your candy bar if you want, okay? You can do a window like that. You can just do the straight pieces, or you can do like this. I find to do the straight down like that because I know how many to draw, okay? It kind of gets weird. Now, circles are kind of hard to do that, so you kind of have to keep it like a pizza, okay? So it doesn't matter if you have a candy bar shape, a pizza, or another shape. There's only so many ways that you can do it to keep it equal, because remember, fractions are equal parts, all right? So we have our 2 pieces, which are halves. 3s are thirds, 4ths are 4, okay? So all we're doing today, guys, is we are stating how many equal parts there are. And then on the line, we're writing out the name for them, okay? The word. Remember when you're running a race other than halves, okay? So number 1, I see 1, 2, equal parts. So I am going to take my handy dandy pencil and I'm going to write the 2. Now, if you'll look back here up at the top, when you have 2 equal parts, what do we call it? Halves. So we're going to write the word halves on the line. Okay? Now, the next one, we have 1, 2, 3 equal parts. And if we come back up here, what do we call those equal parts if it's 3? Thirds. Like you're running a race, you're in third place. Okay, we've got our pizza pie right here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. And we call those 4 equal parts fourths. Okay? Now, what I want you to do is I want you to finish that page on your own. And I want you to come over here and do 7 through 12 on your own. Now, let's look at number 13 together. Okay? On number 13 at the bottom, it says, draw to show halves. Explain how you know that the parts are halves. Okay, so guys, we're going to draw our candy bar just like I drew for you on my sheet right here. We're going to draw our little candy bar. So I drew a rectangle square looking thing. Okay, now whenever I want to do halves over here, it tells me that I need to have 2 pieces. So you can separate it like this, or you can just do the old-fashioned way like Miss Jones does. And if I want 2 pieces, that means that I need to draw 1 line. You always draw 1 less line than what you need. And I drew my line real thick and big so you guys could see it, okay? Now, how do I know that that's halves? Because I have how many equal parts? 2. I'm going to write it has 2 equal parts. So if Mr. Jones gets a piece and I get a piece, we're both happy because they're equal. Okay? So guys, I want you to do 1 through 12 on your own. All you're looking at today is how many equal parts they've drawn for you and what do we call that or say that in words. Like you're running a race other than the half part, okay? All right, guys. Now, you can pause this video and you can get that done. If not, we are going right along with spelling and you'll need your dry erase board, your marker, or your pencil and your paper. Okay, because we have 4 words that we're putting in ABC order, okay? We have helpful, sadly, hopeful, and thankful. So if you'll see, we have suffixes on the end this time, guys. We have full and ly. Full tells me that I'm full of something. So if I'm helpful, I'm full of help. Sadly, ly tells me in a certain way. So what way was it? It was sad, wasn't it? Hopeful, full of hope. Thankful, full of thanks. Okay, so guys, let's look at this and we're going to do the ABC order. So I don't see any A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Oh, I have 2 H's, so I'm going to go to that second letter. I have an E and an O. Which one comes first? A, B, C, D, E. Yep, that E comes first. So helpful is first, hopeful is second. I'm going to use my best cursive handwriting to write down these 2 words, helpful, hopeful. And guys, like I said, you can pause and you can take your time and do this. Okay, so we usually circle the words that we've used so we know they're out of the way. So we have 2 left, sadly and thankful. HIJKLMNOP QRS. And then we have our last one. So sadly comes third. I'm going to use my best handwriting. Sadly. And then thankful on the bottom. Remember, be practicing not picking up your pen, your pencil, your marker, whatever you're using when you do cursive unless you have one of those capital letters. Okay? All right, guys. Give me a fist bump because I know you guys knocked that out of the park. I'll go ahead and erase this. Get your flimsy book ready. We are going to be on page 112. 112. 112. Now, guys, I know that I skipped a story, but there's some skills in here that I wanted to go over with you, especially those suffixes and some of these helping verbs and things like that, or irregular verbs that we talked about a little bit, but I wanted to go over a little bit more, and that goes with this story, okay? So we're going to skip over that story. You guys can read that if you want to in your spare time. There comes Maggie, my big marshmallow doggy. Anyway, so read that on your own if you want to, but we're going to be on 112 today. Okie dokie. On page 112, we've got our suffixes, and they added the Y in there, but it's a lot like ly in a certain way. It tells you how something is. It describes it to you. Okay? Number 1, you have a picture. Now, what are we going to describe this picture with? It looks like it's a windmill, right? So would wonder or windy describe what would be happening right there? I think windy, right? Because you're going to need a lot of wind in order to move that windmill. So I'm going to circle it. I'm going to write it on the line. Okay, let's look at this next picture. This girl, she looks like she's feeding her pet parrot. Helpful or hopping? Which one do you think describes her? I think she's being very helpful. What do you think? All right. Okay, guys, look at your number 3. Look at that. What do you think describes that scene? Snoring or snowy? Snoring was kind of silly, wasn't it? I think snowy. It looks like a very snowy scene. Number 4. So it looks like we have someone on a bike. They're wearing their helmet, all that good stuff. Is it safely or softer? I think safely. They're being very safe with their safety gear on and everything. Number 5, look at that picture. We have 2 kiddos. It looks like they are building a sandcastle. Careful or hurting? I don't think they're hurting anything. I think you have to be careful whenever you build that sandcastle because it might topple over if you're not careful. There we are, kiddos. I'm sure you all did awesome. Okay, let's go to the next one, guys. It's going to be on page 113. Has, have, and had, okay? When we use these. Now, up at the top, it explains it to you. Have, has, and had are irregular verbs because you can't has down the road. When we think of a verb, we think of an action like jumping, hopping, running, skipping. You can't have. So these are irregular. They're not regular. So you have to use have and has to tell about right now. I have 2 dogs in the room somewhere with me. Okay? Had tells about the past, right? I had a whole chocolate bar before Mr. Jones came along and ate half of it. So that's past tense. So have and has, which this is all tongue twisters for me. Present, had is past. So let's look at this and see if we can figure out which one belongs in these sentences. We're going to circle. Number 1, Carrie have 2 rugs. Carrie has 2 rugs. Which one do you think? Has, yeah. Look at your number 2. last week she blank 3 rugs. Last week she had 3 rugs. Last week she had 3 rugs. Let's think about that. Last week tells me it happened in the past. And I know that had is the happened in the past one, so it has to be had. Hello, Luna. She just came in from outside, so you're a little snout. Okay, number 3. Now, Gus and Lee, meaning now, that's happening right now, had her old rug or have her old rug. It's happening now. Have. Good job. Number 4. Carrie blank no room for her rug. Carrie had no room for her rug. Carrie have no room. Which one sounds better? I think Carrie had. Carrie have no room? Number 5. Gus and Lee has room. Gus and Lee had room. Well, I guess that all depends on if it's happening now or in the past. Well, it says Carrie had no room for her rug. Gus and Lee had room or has room. So they have room right now. So I would say it's present tense. Number 6, they blank a big attic. They has a big attic. They have a big attic. I think have. What do you think, guys? Some of those can be a little tricky if they don't give you any clues as to whether or not it's past tense or present tense. So we just kind of have to use our noggin and figure out which the best would be. Okay, guys, we are finished with our flimsy book. We're just going right along here. If you'll get your hardback reader out for me, please. The Goat in the Rug. Yeah, in the rug. Now, guys, we have some brand new vocabulary words, okay? So if you'll turn back a couple of pages to 274, number 1 is yarn. People use yarn to knit sweaters, hats, and mittens, and it even gives you a picture of what the yarn is. Oh, there comes my kitty cat. We're all here now. Number 2, strands. The strands of yarn are tied into knots at the bottom of this rug. So strands are just strings of something. Number 3, spinning. It takes a lot of practice spinning chunks of wool into yarn. And if you look at that, that is it looks like a spinning wheel, and they spin, and that wheel will weave those yarn strands into something. Number 4, dye. Now this isn't like dye. This one is like the color. These shirts are soaked in dye to make them colorful, okay? So if you're talking about a color of a shirt, and this can even mean like the dye that you dye your hair, okay? Number 5, weave. This woman will weave dried grasses into baskets, and weave is just the in and out motion of some kind of material to make a certain thing. Number 6, sharpening. This pencil does not need sharpening anymore. So sharpening means you're making something dull, pointy. Number 7, duplicated. Some colors on this rug are duplicated. They appear again and again. When something is duplicated, that means the same thing happens over and over, okay? Number 8, delicious. This baker makes delicious cakes. Ooh, that makes me hungry. They are very tasty. So when something is delicious, it means it tastes really, really good. Okay? So guys, we are going to read our Goat in the Rug. And guys, this is a narrative nonfiction. It tells a true story about a topic. Okay? So a setting that can be real, events in a timed order, and it gives you facts and information, okay? So, The Goat in the Rug. I am going to read with you today, guys, if you will follow along. Now, since we're talking about a rug, I would like for you to read today on a carpet or a rug or something like that, some kind of cozy place that you have, because we're talking about a rug, okay? So, The Goat in the Rug. If you will track the print with me, by Geraldine. As told to Charles L. Blood and Martin Link illustrated by Nancy Winslow Parker. Now, when it says, as told to, that means this is a story that's been passed down, okay? So that was how it was told to them. Our essential question, how is art connected to the past? So there's some things that our ancestors used to make that maybe have been passed down. Maybe you have a picture, maybe you have a blanket at home that was made by someone in your family that was passed down. I know my grandmother used to make quilts, and I actually have one of her quilts that she made. So that's a form of art. Anything that you can make that is created by you is art. So it's connected to my past because it was my grandmother and something that she loved to do. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that art can be passed down. We have museums filled with art and beautiful things, beautiful works that people have made from the past that have shown us different glimpses in how they used to live, right? So let's go ahead and get into our story. It says, my name is Geraldine, and I live near a place called Window Rock with my Navajo friend, Glen May. It's called Window Rock because it has a big round hole in it that looks like a window open to the sky. Glen May is called Glen May most of the time because it's easier to say than her Indian name, Gli Nazba. In English, that means something like female warrior, but she's really a Navajo weaver. I guess that's why one day she decided to weave me into a rug. So Geraldine, who do you think is Geraldine on that picture? The goat, right? And then Glen May is the Navajo weaver, the lady. I remember it was a warm, sunny afternoon. Glen May had spent most of the morning sharpening a large pair of scissors. I had no idea what she was going to use them for, but it didn't take me long to find out. What do you think she's going to use those scissors for? Look at that picture at the top, that illustration. That's silly. He's on his back, huh? Now, before I knew what was happening, I was on the ground and Glen May was clipping off my wool in great long strands. It's called mohair, really. It didn't hurt at all, but I admit I kicked up my heels some. I'm very ticklish for a goat. I might have looked a little naked and silly afterwards, but did I feel nice and cool. So I decided to stick around and see what would happen next. So she cut the wool off of the goat. The first thing Glen May did was chop up roots from a yucca plant. The roots made a soapy, rich lather when she mixed them with water. She washed my wool in the suds until it was clean and white. So that yucca plant helped clean all of the dirt and things that were in the wool. So this is like the goats telling the story, right? After that, a little bit of me, you might say, was hung up in the sun to dry. When my wool was dry, Glen May took out 2 large square combs with many teeth. By combing my wool between these carding combs, as they're called, she removed any bits of twigs or burrs and straightened out the fibers. She told me it helped make a smoother yarn for spinning. So she makes sure that they're nice and smooth, right? Now, guys, can a goat really tell a story? No, but it's still telling a story about things that actually could happen, right? So here we go. Then Glen May carefully started to spin my wool, one small bundle at a time, into yarn. I was beginning to find out it takes a long while to make a Navajo rug. Again and again, Glen May twisted and pulled the wool. Then she spun it around a long, thin stick she called a spindle. As she twisted and pulled and spun, the finer, stronger, and smoother the yarn became. So this Navajo lady, she didn't go to a store and buy this rug, right? She actually started from the source. She got the wool from the goat, cleaned it herself, straightened it out, and started to pull it into threads of yarn. So that takes a long time, doesn't it? It says, a few days later, Glen May and I went for a walk. She said we were going to find some special plants she would use to make dye. I didn't know what dye meant, but it sounded like a picnic to me. I do love to eat plants. That's what got me into trouble. So look at her list here. It says rabbit brush, wild onion, cliff rose, sumac, juniper, walnuts, and dock. So when she said she was going to go get some dye, all this goat sees is, oh, that's a list of plants. So let's see what happens that gets her in trouble. While Glen May was out looking for more plants, I ate every one she had already collected in her bucket. Delicious. That goat looks pretty happy. The next day, Glen May made me stay home while she walked miles to a store. She said the dye she could buy wasn't the same as the kind she makes from plants. But since I'd made such a pig of myself, it would have to do. So she had to go, right? She said that she had to go to the store. She had to walk miles, so she didn't even have a car. It looks like she walked. I was really worried that she would still be angry with me when she got back. She wasn't, though. And pretty soon she had 3 big potfuls of dye boiling over a fire. Then I saw what Glen May had meant by dyeing. She dipped my white wool into one pot, and it turned pink. She dipped it in again. It turned a darker pink. By the time she'd finished dipping it in and out and hung it to dry, it was a beautiful deep red. So it took her a while to dye that by herself, right? After that, she dyed some of my wool brown and some of it black. I couldn't help wondering if those plants I'd eaten would turn me all the same colors. Look at what he's imagining he would look like. He would look like a really funny goat, wouldn't he? While I was worrying about that, Glen May started to make our rug. She took a ball of yarn and wrapped it around and around 2 poles. I lost count when she'd reached 300 wraps. I guess I was too busy thinking about what it would be like to be the only red, white, black, and brown goat in Window Rock. So this is a long process, isn't it? It wasn't long before Glen May had finished wrapping. Then she hung the poles with the yarn on the big wooden frame. It looked like a picture frame made of logs. She called it a loom. After a whole week of getting ready to weave, Glen May started. She began weaving at the bottom of the loom. Then, one strand of yarn at a time, our rug started growing toward the top. So she kept weaving it in and out, huh? Aw, look at them sitting together. A few strands of black, a few of brown, a few of red, in and out, back and forth until in a few days, the pattern of our rug was clear to see. Our rug grew very slowly, just as every Navajo weaver before her had done for hundreds and hundreds of years. Glen May formed a design that would never be duplicated. So this was her own design. She didn't get it from a book. She got it from her brain. She created it. Then, at last, the weaving was finished, but not until I'd checked it quite thoroughly in front and in back did I let Glen May take our rug off the loom. So that's their rug. Isn't that neat? There was a lot of me in that rug. I wanted it to be perfect, and it was. Since then, my wool has grown almost long enough for Glen May and me to make another rug. I hope we do very soon, because you see, there aren't too many weavers like Glen May left among the Navajos. So not many people do that anymore. And there's only one goat like me, Geraldine. And it says, this is a true story of a weaver and her goat who lived in the Navajo Nation at Window Rock, Arizona. So that was an actual lady, and she had a goat, and that's how she made her rugs, which is an amazing process, isn't it, guys? All right, kiddos. Well, that ends our studies for the day, our lessons for the day. Check back with me tomorrow and we'll do more fractions and we'll get back with Geraldine and Glenn May. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. I love and I miss you. Mwah.